our session is the 5 technologies that are transforming retail. And I'm curious right now what Intel sees inside and what is going to be the greatest thing to come for us.
Well, I think first of all, everybody realizes retail is under tremendous transformation, and there's a lot of pressure. People, I think, like to blame Amazon. Our view actually is a bit different. We think that consumers are changing really rapidly. Consumer expectations are changing rapidly, and the online retailers have just been better at meeting those changing consumer expectations. And so what we're seeing is a lot of opportunity in physical retail, brick and mortar retail, to up the game and to be able to better meet and serve those new consumer expectations. And what that's going to require is a lot more use of data and analytics, vision systems, and those technologies are maturing really rapidly, which is going to make it much more affordable and easy to deploy.
So, we haven't used this word yet today, and I'm sort of loath to introduce it, but the word omnichannel in retail, this notion that, retail is universally the same everywhere. Do you think that's true? Are we getting closer to that, or have we stopped thinking about it at all and just, it's all retail?
I think it is an overused word. We don't really talk about omnichannel anymore. I think it's just retail. JD.com is number 2 internet retailer in China behind Alibaba. They say that there's no online and offline retail, there's just retail.
Right.
And I think the future of retail it's just retail. Consumers want to be able to engage your product. They want to engage your services. They want to engage socially with your product wherever, whenever they want. In China, if you haven't been to China and really experienced what retail is in the last couple of years in China, I really strongly encourage everybody in the room to go. It's amazing. Social media is completely integrated into how people shop. If you see an item you want in a store, the first thing they'll do is exchange social media credentials with the shopkeeper or the clerk. And then they'll dabble with that product for 2 or 3, 4 days. They might go to lunch or dinner or happy hour with friends. They'll show each other what they've got in their shopping cart that they're interested in. They'll ask more questions of the clerk. The complete integration of social and shopping, it's amazing.
Well, and it's interesting because JD is going to be here in a little while to talk more about this, and we have a presentation coming about retail in China, which is a really best case scenario in terms of where things are going in unification and how technology is changing the customer journey and how they're interacting and using it differently. We'll be talking about that a little bit more. You and I talked about the financial constraints, though, that retailers are under in terms of how they're bucketing technology investment. Is that?
Yeah, I think like every publicly traded company or sector, the financial analysts have a model P&L that they expect you to operate within. And one of the observations we've had is the model P&L for physical retail is really constrained from an IT perspective. And we'll do trial after trial with retailers where they'll see amazing results. And it turns out that they really have a difficult time investing the capital necessary to make these transformations. We'll see projects with paybacks of 6 months, really clear, obvious paybacks. And they'll want to roll it out, but they're like, hey, I've got to roll it out across 2,000 stores. There's no way I can get the capital to do that. And in talking with retail executives, one of the things we've realized is that quarter-by-quarter pressure that Wall Street is putting on retail is holding them back from making this transformation. And one analogy, I guess, is everybody can see the train tracks are driving or heading you off a cliff. All the analysts are worried. Everybody's wringing their hands about retail. Yet the analysts won't let you change tracks. And the reality is that online retailers have a much different model P&L. They spend much more heavily in technology, and they have the ability to use technology to be able to do that, and they can afford it in their model P&L.
Do you have advice that you're offering your customers?
I think as you think about it, it's just retail. You need to educate your analysts. You need to educate Wall Street on the business model, the future, how online retail and offline retail, it's not omni, it's just retail, and how these technologies are essential to survival. One of the things that we do see are the retailers who have started with online only, and they're primarily an online business, as they move into physical retail, and they all do graduate from being online only to moving into physical, they come at that physical retail with a clear understanding of how analytics and data are essential to running their business effectively, because their entire online experience has been all about the data and analytics. And they can't imagine opening a physical store without that data and analytics. And I have to say that typically when we talk to primarily brick and mortar retailers, they're still in that space of trying to justify in their mind how data is really going to help, whereas the online retailers already understand really clearly how that's going to help.
And what about customer expectations? What are you seeing that's sort of plotting a new path for retail?
Yes, I think one of the things that we're going to talk about more this year at NRF, and I think a new mantra for us really is the fundamentals of retail haven't really changed. It's really still about having the right price at the right place for the customer, having the right service, having the basics of retail. The problem you have is customers have changed and expectations have changed. So if you go back, 20 years ago, if I walked into a store, I saw a sport coat I liked, and they didn't have my size and the color I liked, I would think to myself, shucks, I should have come a couple weeks ago. My fault. Today's shoppers are like, what the heck? And they jump on their phone. And we did one study that showed 5 times. If you have a customer that experiences that disappointment 5 times, they stop coming to the store. And so this whole idea that, that we're going to put what we have on the shelf out there and the customers are going to see it and going to buy it, that isn't meeting customer expectations today. Inventory, IHL, I think, their analysis is over $1 trillion a year of missed profit through inventory issues in retail. $300 billion a year of missed profit through selling overstocks below cost. Now, retailers do a fantastic job of creating demand real time in the store through your promotions, merchandising, end caps, mannequins, and too often they create demand for something that's out of stock for the shopper that's in front of that display. And so now instead of selling them, creating that demand, you did a good job of creating demand. Well, now you can't convert that to a sale because you don't have it in stock.
So what's the solution?
When we did another study that 1% of shoppers who experience an out of stock in apparel will they dig through the stack to find it themselves. They'll track down an associate to help. They'll watch the associate dig through the stack to find it. They don't see it. The associate will go in back and look in back stock. Then they'll go on the computer and look, and eventually they'll say, hey, we can have it in another store. We can ship it to you. 1% of shoppers are patient enough to go through that entire journey. And so this whole endless aisle concept that, hey, we'll sell it to them and we'll cover the shipping cost, very small percentage of your shoppers that see those out of stocks are actually doing that.
So what's the solution for that?
We think the solution is much better visibility to your inventory. The technologies are much more mature. The last topic, they brought up RFID. RFID is a great technology for apparel. Vision systems have matured at an incredible rapid pace. We've got Walmart rolling out hundreds of stores with a robot, 14 cameras going up and down the aisle, taking real-time inventory status on the shelves.
I've seen that. It's amazing.
And keeping the shelves fully stocked. If it's in the store and you can't find it as a shopper, it's out of stock. It doesn't matter if it's in the store. Just recently, my daughter bought a present for my wife, and the clerk was patient enough to run around the store and find the one that the computer said was there. Well, too often the computer's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Now, you talked a little bit earlier about the push and pull between the soft skills of retail, right? Like the traditional merchants that selected the items and programmed the inventory, really, versus the data skills that are now driving retail today. Where do you see this evolving to? Or where is it today, and where do you think it's going?
Well, I think I'll start with maybe an end vision. If you can step back and do a thought experiment for a minute, you own your own apparel store. It's a boutique. You've got regular customers. You know your regulars. The customer resource management system, the CRM system's in your head. You know your regulars. You know them by name. You know what they've bought before. Somebody new comes in the store. You don't know who they are. You're going to look at them. How are they dressed? How old are they? What size are they? And what might I have in the store that's going to fit them? You'd be very careful with your inventory because it's your cash on the shelf. If you don't clear that inventory, you're not going to be able to buy the next season's stock. If you had too many raincoats because it was a dry winter, you're going to subtly push raincoats to anybody that comes in. I come in, and I'm a pretty big guy, and you're already sold out of extra large raincoats. You would know that. You're not going to try to sell me a raincoat because you know I'm out of stock. We have data across 3,000 small retail stores in the health food category, and we found that the very best stores that were only the owner owned one store did $1,000 per square foot per year in sales. They're just killing it. The very best 5-store chains, and these are the owners who now have done so well with one store, they now have 5. The very best 5-store chains did $500 per square foot per year in sales. Why? That owner is in the store all day, every day. They are the perfect AI engine for that store. They're not artificial intelligence, they are intelligence. As owners, as leaders, as executives in retail, you can't be in every store all day, every day. Data systems, video analytics, AI, these technologies are going to allow you to get insights about your shoppers, understand your inventory, enable your staff through suggestions to make better recommendations to your customers who will then have a better experience. Create real-time demand in the store, and then be able to fulfill that demand real-time in the store. That's the experience shoppers want.
And is AI there yet to help to really mimic the real intelligence?
I think that the movie AI is not there.
Okay.
I think that the ability to, if we give you a simple example, you walk into a department store today, not today, but you walk in and they have a poster up front for prom dresses because it's prom dress season. If I walk in, pretty unlikely I'm going to buy a prom dress. I mean, I might have a daughter that's that age. I'm probably too old for that. You might have a daughter the age to buy a prom dress. I don't know. But they have prom dresses up because that's the season and everybody gets to see the prom dress ad. What % of the shoppers walking in are going to buy a prom dress? Single digits, probably. That's a prime piece of real estate. What we would say is put a digital asset there, put a digital sign there, and with cameras you can anonymously detect gender. So if it's a guy, probably not good to put a prom dress on. If it's somebody who's not at the right age as a female for a daughter or a shopper of a prom dress, don't show a prom dress. What could I show them that would be interesting to that shopper? Now for me, seeing a prom dress when I walk by, it's just noise. It's advertising noise, but it's not helpful. If I saw something I'm potentially interested in, that's great. Well, we have better technology still. We can actually tell your size. So we can tell if you're small, medium, large, extra large. We can look at your color palette. We can estimate your age. And so now you can say, there's a guy walking in his 50s wearing bright blue, and he's an extra large size person. What do I have in stock right now? Oh, and hey, by the way, Ralph Lauren is paying me for promotions right now. What do I have in stock from Ralph Lauren that would be interesting or has been interesting to shoppers like this one walking through the store? That technology exists today.
What about nuance? You brought something up about the prom dress and the gender. So at what point, we've now had some real world examples of AI making some broad stroke generalizations about the human it's interacting with. How far are we from it becoming more knowledgeable and more refined in that it gets more specific and less generalized?
I think the ability today is there. And if you look at it, there's always the question of, well, if it thought I was 52 years old and I'm 48, I'm going to be offended. Well, the screen's not going to say your age.
Right.
And if I walk by today and they have Dockers on a young man, I'm not going to be offended that I walked by and saw Dockers on a young man on a sign. And so I think what we're talking about is trying to make the content more relevant to the shopper, not necessarily perfectly relevant. And over time, the AI will get better and better. But today, another simple example, convenience stores. All the customers we work with in that space tell us that essentially all the energy drinks are bought by men. Women buy very few energy drinks. Well, when a woman walks into a convenience store, why are you advertising an energy drink? Super unlikely they're going to buy an energy drink. What do women buy when they walk into a convenience store? Well, you might know that, and you could program it today to do that, or you could just actually link that digital sign to your sales out transaction, and when a female shopper buys something, what are they buying? And at this location, what are female shoppers buying? Oh, and at this location, at this time of day, what are female shoppers buying? And so there's an ability to use data that's being generated all the time in your stores today, apply analytics to that data, and you can draw insights. And again, I think it's not like you're going to instantly go from no insights or no optimizations to perfect optimization. It's how do you get better and better and better?
Now, do you think retailers are doing a good job, or what can they do better to sort of incorporate the people with the data skills inside their own organizations in leadership positions to help make these decisions?
Yeah, that's an interesting challenge. We've got one retail partner, a large retail partner, who has big investments in this space. And one of the challenges they highlighted with us is actually recruiting the right talent. Mm-hmm. And they find that the talent they're looking for, the very best, are more attracted to going after the online. And so they're actually taking a very proactive approach and doing a lot of things like at NRF to be more attractive to that kind of tech talent. And so I think it is a challenge right now. I think if you look at physical retail, the skills that have allowed physical retailers to excel for the past 500 years, mm-hmm. they're a different set of skills than tech companies hire. The thinking styles, the orientation towards data and analytics, it's very different. And so I think that there's going to require some changes. Now, the good news, most physical retailers already have an online presence. Mm-hmm. And so that they're bringing in that online talent. And I think, our take would be, how do you kind of foster and try to, really up-level the influence that tech talent can bring into your thinking?
We talk a lot about silos in retail and the silo of IT versus marketing versus merchandising, and breaking down those walls so they can make the investments and quantify the returns in new and unusual ways. And I think you bring up yet another point about how you definitely need to have the barriers down between the departments.
We have meetings all the time with innovation teams in retail, and I tend to try not to meet with innovation teams because of the silo problem, right? And if it's not operations, stores, merchandising, somebody who's in the core of running the business, we're looking for technology and how it's going to help, it tends to be a bunch of experimentation. And I think what's happened is there's all this investment that retailers make in building kind of sexy new ideas and testing them, but they haven't built those with the involvement of the core of the business. And so those become things that are appealing to the technical side. And by the way, I wouldn't go to a high-tech company and suggest that they're going to be great merchandisers. They're not going to be great at running a retail store. The ability they have to use and manipulate data and help you find insights in data is what you need. And it's a blend of that. What is the basics of retail, and how do we use data to help make the basics of retail better? It's not how do we replace retailers with a bunch of tech people.
Exactly. So where do you see the future of retail in the next 5 years, say?
I think in the next 5 years, you're going to see a much better blending of the mobile experience, the online experience, and physical retail experience into just retail, the way JD talks about it. I think you're going to see retailers doing a better and better job of bringing that tech capability in. But I think we're also going to see a big turnover in leadership in retail. I think you're going to continue to see bad retail go out of business.
Yes.
I think the retail apocalypse that we talked about a few years ago isn't really an apocalypse. It's just the death of bad retail.
Not the boring retail.
And boring retail, yeah. And so I think what we are seeing, and we're actually doing a study right now to get hard data behind this, but our perspective, and we've been very involved in this space for 10 years, the companies that are growing really, really fast and doing really well in this good times we have right now in retail are the ones that have come from online and bring that really data tech-centric approach to using the data and really mining what's happening in the stores. And the ones who are falling behind are the companies who are really struggling to embrace how analytics and data can help them.
Unless they're a single store and then they are.
Unless they have that single store, and if you have your own store and you're good, your brain is that perfect engine.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Great, thanks.